Welcome to the Horti-Culturalists.
Hello, Stephen Ryan.
Good morning, Matthew Lucas.
What a glorious day. But Stephen, where are we?
Well, we're not in my garden.
No,
we're actually in one of Mount Macedon's famous and beautiful hill station residences called Karori.
Interesting name.
Yes, it's of Maori origin because the original owner and builder of the property had connections with New Zealand.
Aha, well, let's go and explore.
What a good idea.
This is such a fantastic garden. So what are we going to look at today, Mr. Ryan?
Well, we're going to look at a structure that has been built recently for utilitarian purposes, but nods to the history of the garden.
Oh, I love a nod to history. Let's go.
All right.
Well, what is it that I see before me, Stephen?
Well, this, believe it or not, this wonderful structure is actually a vegetable garden and fruit cage area.
Wow.
Which has been built recently so that they can get some produce out of the garden, the owners.
And what were the issues? Is it a climatic issue? Why would you need to build such a thing?
Well, it's mainly about critters.
Critters?
Critters, yes. Up in the hills where we are at Mount Macedon, a little under 1,000 metres above sea level, there are about 5 species of parrots that have a great love for fruit.
Yes.
There are possums and wallabies and even wild deer, which also have a great love for greenery and fruit. And
as all introduced exotics tend to.
Yes, well, exactly. The deer are becoming actually quite a serious issue up in this area. So the only way that you could turn what was some old vegetable terraces into a new productive garden was to put up some sort of structure. And one doesn't necessarily want to impose upon a garden like this with some wire hoops and bird netting.
Yeah, and this is very beautiful. What was the guiding principle of this then?
Well, I think the owners decided that they wanted a structure that ties in with the beauty of the house. I mean, it's a gorgeous gingerbread house from 1880s, designed by somebody called Louis Boldini, who was an Italian architect, but in fact lived in New Zealand, and a lot of famous houses in Dunedin were designed by him.
How did he end up here in rural Victoria?
Well, because the owner had business connections with New Zealand and he liked what Boldini was doing, so he commissioned him to come and design a house. In fact, he designed 2 properties around here, but he designed specifically this house for the original owner.
Interesting. Well, shall we have a closer look and deconstruct some of these ideas?
Yes, why not?
Really is beautiful, and the smells.
Yes, the whole garden's full of fantastic herbs and things as well.
Yes.
And the owner said to me she wanted to grow roses.
Yes.
And I laughed, as one does, and said growing roses at Mount Macedon is virtually an impossibility because of the depredations of parrots.
Also, it's the parrots, not the weather.
No, not so much the weather, although they can get black spot and mildews and things in our damp sort of climate. But it's really the fact that possums and parrots adore roses.
I didn't know that it was parrots. What, do they eat the buds?
No, actually they do something even worse than that. What they do is they go into your rose bush.
Is this family friendly?
Yeah, this is family friendly. What they do is they come in and they see a lovely strong new shoot growing on the rose bush and they just nip it off and drop it to the ground. That's what they do.
Vicious and pointless.
Yeah, they're the avian vandals of the world.
Avian vandals.
Yeah, but look, they are stunning. So they are now within the cage and the owner can now pick the most beautifully scented roses for the house because they're protected.
So such a structure can serve many purposes.
Well, in fact, this one does. It has its vegetable section.
Yes.
It has its orchard section.
Yes.
It has its flower section.
Yes.
And it has...
And you might be able to hear...
Yes, the girls.
The
chicken shed is in here as well. Everything has been done to sort of match the house in a way. So it's just fantastic.
It really is. And what I love, we are on an avenue of herbs, which I will show you, and the flowers and the fragrance is gorgeous.
Yeah, well, there's everything here. There's rosemary, there's sage, there's oregano, there's basil, there's Vietnamese mint. I mean, there's virtually every herb that you could possibly want.
Excellent. Well, let's go and smell.
Yes, what a good idea. We're now in the orchard part of the structure.
We are, and what is this?
Well, this is a very old-fashioned fruit tree, commonly known as a medlar.
A medlar, yes.
Yes. It would have been popular back in the 19th century and earlier, but when apples and other sundry fruit came in from the east, medlars tended to go out of fashion a bit. But the fruit is very nice if it's left to go very, very ripe and used fresh with bitey cheese. The fruit is also very useful for making jellies and jams and sundry things like that.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it makes a bloody good liqueur.
Very importantly. I would imagine then it also has quite beautiful spring flowers.
Exactly, it's all about the ornamentality in this garden.
Yes.
So it's got lovely spring blossom. Its foliage also colours superbly in the autumn.
Yeah.
And it's being sort of vaguely espaliered in here to keep it within the bounds of the structure.
So this is the thing, the roof, how tall would we say that is?
3-ish metres, I suppose.
3-ish metres, which in feet is...
About 9 to 10 feet.
So the ceiling is about 9 feet tall. What is the maintenance for fruit trees, and is that an ideal way to grow them?
Well, it is. If you can keep the fruit trees in bounds as far as height's concerned within a structure like this, it also has the other added advantage, of course, that all your fruit is within reach.
Easier to pick.
Exactly.
Indeed, indeed. And I mean, fruit trees do tend to fruit best if they are particularly pruned.
Oh yes, yes, because you're pruning, hopefully, to create the right sort of wood to support flowers and to support fruit.
There we go. What's the Latin name of this?
Well, it's actually a name change, but it would be known by most as Mespilus germanica, is the old name, but it's now recently been sunk into the same genus with the hawthorns. So it's now a Crataegus. So it's now Crataegus Mespilus. Bit of a mouthful, but there you go.
There we are. Well, it is lovely, and I feel they're all very happy here in the... What do we call this? It's not a gazebo, it's...
Fruit structure? I'm not sure what.
Fruit structure. I think we need a poetic name for this.
Yeah, well, we'll come up with one. And remember, it's also got the chickens in here in the same area.
Yes.
And they're sort of wandering around our feet as we speak.
Yes.
And they're, of course, picking up bugs, and they're also fertilising trees.
They are. And you're very beautiful ladies.
Yes.
Now, Stephen, a quick pest aside. Your eagle eye spotted something on this. What tree is this?
Well, this is a quince tree.
Yes.
And yes, it's got a fairly intensive infestation of pear and cherry slug.
Ooh,
They're
look
disgusting.
They do, and they kind of don't look like slugs. They
No.
look like, well, little mucal blobs, but we'll come in.
Ugh.
So what's the story with these?
All right, well, lots of people have trouble with pear and cherry slug in their garden, particularly on pears and cherry trees, funnily enough.
Yes.
But they're not restricted to that. As you can see, it's on a quince, and it will attack quite a number of other plants. It takes the surface off the leaf.
Non-fruit trees?
Occasionally, yes, but not terribly often. It's mainly fruit trees in the Rosaceae family, so things in the rose family that are fruit trees that they go for. And they're a Sawfly larva, so they will turn into another beast later on.
Right.
They tend to come in at around about midsummer.
Yeah.
They do a lot of damage. They take the surface off the leaves.
Yes,
They
this
do a lot
is
of damage to the
really
leaves.
quite strict, which obviously affects the plant's ability to photosynthesize.
It does. But the thing people worry most about it is it is ugly and it does look unattractive.
Yeah.
But what they don't realise is that by midsummer, most of your trees have done their best as far as feeding themselves and working up for next year.
Okay.
So although it's cosmetically rather unattractive,
Yeah.
it doesn't do a lot of long-term harm to your trees.
Okay.
So you can, in fact, just ignore it and walk away.
Which
right?
we're going to do.
Which we're going to do, yes. We're actually not going to deal with it.
No.
But if they really do offend you and you've got a lot of them on the tree,
Yeah.
the best way to deal with it is to use something very dry and fine powdery, like garden lime, like, believe it or not, talcum powder, but don't use your mum's best lavender scented. You can also use ash from the fire. Anything that's going to stick to their nasty little squishy bodies and
Yeah.
dry them up.
Interesting, which is quite an organic solution.
It is. You don't have to use any sort of nasty
Pesticide,
chemicals.
right.
Yeah.
Now, so they are in fact not a slug, they're a larva.
Yes, they're the larva of a sawfly. So there you go.
But they look sluggish.
Yes, they do. And they are a most unattractive creature. And if you go around the tree squashing them, and the smell of them is a bit yucky.
We shan't do that.
No.
I think we need to attract the girls to come and eat them.
Yeah, well, they would eat them. And in fact, if I pluck that leaf off with a couple of nasty little slugs on it and just gently drop it to the ground, the girls will clean up the cherry slugs in due course. There we go, ladies. They'll turn into eggs.
Well, that was beautiful. What a fantastic structure.
Yes.
This is.
Yes. And now we're out of the cage and we're released. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our little trip to Karori.
It is such a beautiful garden, and we will shoot some more episodes here. So,
Yes.
Do subscribe, because then you'll see more of this fabulous garden.
Yeah. And us, of course.
And us, of course. So we post once a week. Hit like if you want. Do leave a question.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan, the garden guru, will answer them. I won't.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you next week with who knows what.
Yes. But please subscribe.
See you next week.